the D.C. Bureau. Joining the table, Democratic Senator from West Virginia, Senator Joe Manchin, and Republican Governor of Virginia, Governor Bob McDonnell. Gentlemen, good to have you on board.
Bob's for jobs. Bob's for jobs.
We still talk about your campaign.
We do.
Because it was such an example, really.
It really was.
In so many ways.
Obviously, Bob, you've had a lot of problems. Ethics complaints, people coming after you from all sides. That's why on election night, this poll surprised a lot of people in media so much. It was your approval ratings versus President Obama's approval ratings in the state of Virginia. 52% for Bob McDonnell, only a 41% disapproval rating, and polling 6 points better than President Obama. We'll get to the ethics challenges in a minute, but first, why are your approval ratings still so high?
Joe, I think the reason is that we focused on trying to solve problems and get things done and bring Republicans and Democrats together in order to address kitchen table issues, whether it's been transportation or pension system reform, right, or education reform. I've had 4 surpluses in a row. I mean, we're trying to just get people to get problems solved.
What's unemployment?
A lot tougher in Washington, but we get it done at the state
what's
level.
Unemployment right now?
We're down to 5.8%. It's the lowest in the Southeast, and created about 180,000 jobs. And so, people are working together. If they're working and have greater access to the American dream, they feel good about the state, and I think that's
so. Let me ask you this question. You were painted in 2009 as a right-wing extremist.
Yeah.
You went there, you stayed conservative. The reason why even last week, Mika and I were talking about how you're a role model ideologically for conservatives, small government conservatives that figure out how to work together with the other side. We see Scott Walker doing it. We see Chris Christie doing it. What's the secret of doing that? How do you do that without people on your own side saying you're a traitor to the cause?
Well, you wrote about this in your book, and you said it's principled conservatism along with clear-eyed pragmatism. I think that's right. I mean, politics is the art of the possible. Fight hard for your principles. I'm a fiscal and a social conservative. But one, you got to have the right tone. I smile a lot and tell people I'm optimistic about it.
You know what? You know what? Being a happy warrior, it goes a long way, doesn't it?
And then, the kitchen table issues, what people want to know about is what are you going to do for me and my family and give me greater access to a bright future. And the better you make your roads, your schools, your pension system, your budget, your tax burden, the better that's going to be for people. And it's worked. It's been a great formula in Virginia, and we're a pretty prosperous state. #1 state in the business. #1 state for business, according to Forbes magazine. That means more jobs.
That's something.
Okay, so let's go with the ethics challenges that you've been facing. Obviously, the latest is the CEOs of this firm that you were working with, and I guess the bottom line is it looked like quid pro quo, a lot of other things, expenses run up. What do you regret? What would you like to say?
Well, listen, I said that I would do some things, a little bit differently now, having the benefit of hindsight. I've worked hard, tirelessly for 37 years to serve the people of America and Virginia. Look, I'm not perfect. I've made some mistakes. I acknowledge those. We returned the gifts, paid back loans, and then I get up every day and do the best job I can for Virginia. Same thing I've done for 4 years.
Do you agree that it looks like you abused the position?
No, absolutely not. I have never. I love the people of Virginia. I love this office.
How would you characterize it then?
Well, I've followed the law. I have accepted gifts. A lot of other governors have done the same thing. But in retrospect, I understand that it undermined the trust of the people in me, and that's why I made the changes that I did, and why I apologize, and why we'll recommend some ethics reform changes in the law this coming year.
That would certainly clarify it. If you follow what the law of Virginia has been in the past, and yet you still have all of these ethics charges filed against you, and now you have the feds talking about wanting to come in. You do need to clarify. I mean, those ethics laws need to be clarified, don't they?
I think they do, Joe. I mean, we have some of the more lax laws in the country. We have pretty open finance laws as well, where we don't have any limits on either gifts or on financial contributions. We just have full disclosure. We're a sunshine state. And for the most part, that's worked pretty well. But just looking back to my own situation, and some of the things that have been written have been either inaccurate or unfair or one-sided. and there'll be a time for me to comment on that. But I don't want anybody else to go through this, and so we're going to have a series of reforms that I think that we can recommend. But what I'm doing right now,
just bright lines.
Brighter lines, yeah. That would help.
I want to talk about Terry McAuliffe, governor of Virginia. That horrifies a lot of Republicans. James Madison, to Thomas Jefferson, to Terry McAuliffe. Are you kidding?
Another Irish Catholic man with 5 kids. We're on a roll here.
I love Terry.
Okay, maybe that explains it. Joe Manchin, just sitting here listening to Bob McDonnell talking about a state that he took over, driven unemployment down, and now the most prosperous state is for business, certainly the Southeast. Doesn't that make you miss being governor? No, I'm dead serious, because you're in a place right now where you're not rewarded for action.
Yeah. Well, Bob and I had a chance to work together because I was cycling out when Bob was coming in, so we bored an awful lot and got to work. We have one town in our state, Bluefield. And down the middle of the streets is Bluefield, Virginia, and Bluefield, West Virginia. So it's really quite a dynamic place, and we've met there before, trying to work together. And governors can do something. You know, the state's 10th Amendment to the Constitution is very clear. States have rights to sovereignty. And I think that the experimental labs that we have there, we can show the federal government. I don't think our founding fathers ever designed for this thing to be run out of Washington.
Right.
They designed for us to be able to do what we needed to do to show them that we are different, but we're all one and the same. And I think it's done extremely well. And I'm probably the biggest defender of states' rights.
Yeah.
Being former governors, there's 11 former governors in the Senate right now. And we have a governor's caucus.
And all of them miss being governors.
Absolutely.
Yes, we do.
Well, what are you doing to help move things forward? You're constantly trying to pull Republicans and Democrats together.
I think you've got to find commonality, Joe.
What about right now with the health care problem?
With the health care bill, first of all, you have to decide, are you somebody who's been voting to repeal it for 40-some times? Or do you want to go back? You know, I don't want anybody in West Virginia to have one catastrophe as far as a health problem away from bankruptcy, destroying their lives. I don't want a person that's had a pre-existing condition not to be able to get it, or a child with a defect. I don't want to go back to those days. I'm willing to work through this, and I've put some things on the table, and I would hope that constructively the White House would look at that. And I've said, listen, you have a rollout problem, that's fine. We all have those problems. It should be a transitional year.
Yeah.
You just can't just put it off and keep putting it off. I said, just don't put a crime or a fine to the bill this year. Let's work through it, get the products right. There's a lot we can do if we're working from a positive position.
Is the president disconnected from the Senate and from the House?
Everybody has a different style. I've said this before.
Is the president disconnected? Come on, brother. Is the president disconnected?
I don't have that much, if you're asking me.
When's the last time you met with him at the White House?
The student loan bill. The one time I've met with him.
You met with him one time?
At the student.
But he calls you once a week, twice. How many times you talk to him on the phone?
I'm sure he's very busy.
Stop it. Enough.
So Bob McDonnell, this is a thing that fascinates Republican and Democratic governors. You know, we asked Chris Christie early on, why the success? He goes, it's very simple, because even when I was at war with the public unions, even when I was at war with Democratic interest groups, I made sure that I met with the Democratic leadership once a week, would have breakfast, would sit and talk for a couple of hours, and we became really good friends, and we worked through these tough issues. But that doesn't seem to happen in Washington anymore.
Yeah, and I don't understand. Joe would have a better perspective, but I think there's so few days that people actually meet. You know, in the General Assembly and the legislature actually under one roof debating the bills, everybody's together, you listen. There, you're rarely together under the same roof. I think the relationships that like a Tip O'Neill and Ronald Reagan had, or Newt Gingrich and Bill Clinton, I mean, those kind of relationships and partnerships are gone. I think it's going to take statesmen like a Joe Manchin to rise up and say, we got to do some things for the common good that are great for our country. And Joe's absolutely right. I think what's going to save America are two things. One, restoration of Mr. Mason's 10th Amendment to realize that the power should reside in the states, not in Washington. And secondly, is a balanced budget amendment. Until money is managed in Washington like it's managed in people's homes, we're not going to get our fiscal house in order.
And in most of the states. I mean, most states.
So we all have 49 out of 50 balanced budget and get it done.
I'm struck by something that the senator said, because this is a senator who is a Democrat who can talk to Republicans and often kind of plays the middle ground here. You know, you say that you haven't been to the White House since you were discussing the student loan bill. You indicated that you may not be getting weekly calls from the president. Does that frustrate you? Do you feel like more would get done if he was reaching out to senators on a more regular basis?
Bob told you